Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is an entitled People story. I live on a nice-sized property out in the countryside. It's nothing too fancy, just a modest house with a big front and backyard. The best part is all the open space around my property. I've got acres of fields on one side and a forest lining the other. It makes for real peaceful living. That is, until my new neighbor Karen moved in recently. Right from the start, I could tell she was going to be a piece of work. She had that stuck-up attitude and sense of entitlement that just drives me nuts. And of course, she lives in this ostentatious mansion that's easily 5 times the size of my place. I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt, though, and went over to introduce myself. Big mistake. She took one look at my dirty boots and grease-stained shirt and turned up her nose. Didn't even bother with a handshake. Just a curt "charmed" before shutting the door in my face. Nice to meet you too, lady. I didn't think much of our little interaction at first. I'm a simple farm boy. I don't care about manners or any of that hoity-toity nonsense. As long as she stayed on her side of the property line, we wouldn't have any issues. But that quickly changed once I saw the army of landscapers and construction workers suddenly descend on her property. There were bulldozers knocking down trees, backhoes digging up the ground, you name it. I wandered over to ask what exactly she had planned for all this destruction. "It's going to be an absolutely stunning open-air amphitheater," Karen declared excitedly. "I'm hosting a benefit concert for my favorite charity next month. We'll have over 100 guests. It's going to be fabulous." 100 guests? Here? Was she out of her mind? This was the middle of nowhere, barely a 2-lane road leading out here. I gently tried explaining that a major event like that just wasn't feasible given the location and lack of access. Karen's smile instantly turned into a scowl. "How dare you?" she snapped. "This is my property and I'll do as I damn well please. This concert is happening whether you country bumpkins like it or not." And with that, she stormed off, muttering about close-minded peasants. Yup, this was going to be a problem. But I'm a reasonable guy. I figured there had to be a solution where she could have her little concert without disturbing all the neighbors, or causing a major traffic jam. I suggested she rent some parking lots in town, or arrange for shuttle buses to transport people safely to the venue. Karen shot down every idea. "My guests won't be subjected to such inconveniences," she insisted. "Their luxury vehicles will be parked right on site, don't you worry about that." Uh-oh, I had a bad feeling I knew exactly where she planned on cramming all those cars. The day of the big event, my worst fears were confirmed. Before the sun had even come up, fancy cars with out-of-state plates started lining my driveway and the field across from my property. Mercedes, BMWs, even a few Rolls-Royces, all blocking me in and trampling my crops. By the time I finished my breakfast, there were easily over 100 vehicles clogging up my land. I marched over to Karen's amphitheater, which somehow had been finished in just a few weeks. "What's going on?" I demanded. "You can't park on my property." Karen glanced over with annoyance as her staff scurried around setting up. "Then where do you expect my guests to park? I warned you we needed adequate parking." I couldn't believe her audacity. "That ain't my problem. You should have planned for this and gotten permission to use my land." Karen waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, don't make such a fuss. They'll be gone in a few hours. I'm doing something for charity here. Be grateful." Grateful my ass. She was deliberately trespassing and damaging my property. I made it very clear that she needed to direct her guests to move their vehicles immediately, or I'd start having them towed. That finally seemed to get through her thick skull. She hurried off, probably to let her fancy friends know they'd need to move. But an hour later, the cars hadn't budged an inch, and crowds of well-dressed folks were still making their way down my driveway, heels and loafers stomping all over my dirt. By then, the concert had started blasting music so loud I could hear it clear in my house with all the doors and windows shut. This lady had some nerve. I wasn't about to spend the day trapped by these vehicles while my eardrums got blown out by her terrible taste in bands. I jumped on my tractor and got to work. I started slowly plowing through the field, nudging the back bumper of each parked BMW, Benz, and Bentley. The owners freaked out, scared I'd damage their precious rides, like they were worried about a few scratches after trampling all over my livelihood. But it did the trick. They finally got the message and scrambled to move their cars. Soon enough, I had a convoy of them plummeting down the dirt road away from my property, billowing up clouds of dust in their panic. The idiots probably should have turned around and gone out the proper paved route, but I guess they weren't inclined to listen to my directions at that point. With the field cleared, I rolled on over to my driveway, pushing forward inch by inch, letting my old tractor scrape against those fancy paint jobs. By the time I reached the house, most of the cars were gone, with a few stragglers peeling out to join the rest of the fleeing vehicles. Finally, my property was back to being just mine. As I gazed out at the deep, muddy ruts and ruined crops those thoughtless folks had left behind, I knew this wasn't over yet. Sure enough, about an hour later, I heard sirens coming up the road. 2 police cruisers pulled up, followed by a fire truck. They rushed over to Karen's place, where smoke was now billowing up. Seemed one of those rich idiots had gotten their cherry red vintage Porsche stuck trying to turn around on the dirt road. Spinning their wheels so much apparently caused the thing to overheat and burst into flames. Almost took part of the forest down with it, too. Karen came stomping across the field, face redder than that charred Porsche. Before she could even open her mouth, I told her plain and simple, "You brought this on yourself." The concert got shut down immediately, and all the remaining guests escorted off the premises by the police due to unsafe conditions and lack of permits. Karen got cited for noise violations, illegal parking, and destruction of protected woodlands. As the weeks went by, more legal documents started piling up in Karen's mailbox. I sued her for damages and loss of income from her little parking fiasco. A bunch of her hotshot guests joined in with claims against her for getting their priceless vehicles muddied and dented. The lawsuits dragged on, but in the end, Karen got hit with enough penalties to make even her wallet hurt. As part of the settlement, I also got a restraining order prohibiting her from stepping foot on my property ever again. So in the end, karma came back around on Karen. Her disregard for anyone but herself landed her in a big mess. She learned the hard way that just because you have money doesn't mean you can walk all over regular folks. She wanted an extravagant event, didn't properly plan for it, and ended up with angry police, lawyers, and damaged cars instead of the glamorous concert she envisioned. Let's just say I don't anticipate her hosting any more charity benefits around here anytime soon. The next one is a pro-revenge story. When I was a student, I met my future wife. Shortly after graduation, we married. Everything was fine, we had a happy life, 2 beautiful daughters, and I, as a diplômé engineer in the country of engineers, Germany, had a very decent income. When I got a promotion and was in charge of the business in 13 countries, we even moved to another country for the doubled income, my wife started to act weirder. She began spending money like crazy, became more and more aggressive, violent, and abusive. She started to hit and kick me when she was unhappy. It would have been a classic case of domestic violence if I weren't a large and heavy man and she a small and light woman. Authorities didn't care, the police just laughed hard. She even attacked me with a kitchen knife. But that was not even the worst. Police still laughing. I realized that when I wasn't at home, she did the same to our daughters, both below 6 years old. When I was on a business trip, she left the house and did not come back for days, leaving the kids alone. She just made sure that she was at home before I came back from the business trips to clean up the mess. When I came back from the business trip early, I found my kids in their own mess, completely disturbed and crying from hunger. I was furious. Immediately I spoke to my wife. She just replied that no one would believe me since she was small and cute. And she was right. Not even the youth protection agencies, I hope they are called that in English, cared. She knew she could continue abusing my kids and me. She knew that if I got a divorce, she would get the kids, and I would have to pay for her and the kids for the rest of my life. And she said that straight to my face. So I started to film and photograph everything I could. To gather even more information, I offered her to get a joint calendar app where we both add our appointments. Clever as she is, she really entered all of her appointments, all of her Tinder dates, all of her orgies, and all of her customers' appointments in the calendar. I played the role of the faithful, submissive husband who is too stupid to realize what's going on. With my lawyer and a recommended detective, we started to track her down and took photos. Then luck came back to me. Her father was sick, so my wife went to visit him. She was not from Europe. To do that, I suggested taking my girls temporarily to my parents in Germany. They were informed, to which she agreed. Together with another lawyer, we set up some documents necessary to sign up the children in school, but with some subtle changes she did not notice. She and I signed it immediately, giving up all custody of the girls to my parents. In addition, we gathered enough information at that time to go to court. We pressed charges on child abuse, child neglect, child endangerment, Some of the orgies happened in our house while the kids were watching TV, and domestic violence. My wife came back and thought she was smart and defended herself instead of getting a lawyer herself. She did not realize what tsunami rolled towards her. When she realized it, we offered to drop all charges when she signs a contract on our condition. I get the children, I do not owe her anything, she is not allowed to see the children unattended. A complete restraint order is not possible here. Is that the right term? No holidays with the children, and she has to pay alimony. In the meantime, I found a new job in Germany and moved back. Even this was a heavy hit to my career. My now ex-wife does not have any European citizenship, even after living here for 10 years plus. By signing our divorce papers on our condition, she lost her residence permission for Germany and the country we lived in for a couple of years. She got permission to stay a little bit longer to search for work and reapply for a residence permission, which she did. But as abusive as she was in the relationship, she was not able to adjust herself to a working environment. She got fired multiple times until the authorities lost their patience and canceled her welfare status. Now she has to pay alimonies, is about to lose her residence permission for Europe, and is burned for any regular job. Yesterday I learned she is a registered prostitute. In her current residence country you must be registered, with her own web page where you can order her to the hotel. Clever as she is, with her private telephone number and a picture of herself with a fully visible face. The good thing for her, she got a full 4.7-star rating, and as far as I can judge from the orgy videos, she is quite skillful. The next one is a petty revenge story. My husband and I bought a franchise. At the time I was working at another job while my husband was taking over the business, and no one in the network had met me yet. On the day before the takeover, my husband, the previous owner, and the company's area manager were doing a final check and stocktake in the store during business hours. I was meeting them in the store after work to go over the details with them, and to meet everyone since I would eventually be heavily involved in the business, payroll, accounting, and HR side of things. I should add something important. Taking over the business meant that we could choose to keep the current staff or hire new people without any legal repercussions. As of the moment I walked up to the store for the first time, all of the current staff had been told by the previous owner that their jobs were safe. We didn't want to fire everyone who knew the job to replace them with unskilled people. That's just silly. All they had to do was meet us and make a good impression, obviously. I walked up to the front counter, it is a retail food business, and smiled and greeted the sales team member, Karen. I later found out Karen had been working in this particular store for about 6 years, and had been with the brand for approximately 9 years. I was met with a glare and a sour look, and would you believe it, no greeting, not even a basic hello. I was now extremely annoyed at how rude Karen was. Having worked in customer service for years myself, and having taught it as a profession, and being, a decent human, I was shocked that someone with her demeanor still even had a job. I then quite abruptly told her to let me in, because I was one of the new owners, and was expected to be at the meeting in the store. With a huff, she opened the door and let me through. She still couldn't even crack a smile or be remotely polite to me, which pissed me off even more because she was expecting to be kept on with us. After a few minutes talking to my husband, the area manager, and the previous owner, I told them that that level of service wouldn't be accepted in this store and that we would definitely not be keeping her on. My husband agreed 100%, and it was decided. On my way out, as the store was closing, I said goodbye to good old Karen and casually dropped in, "It was lovely to meet you today, Karen. However, we won't be keeping you on at this store, so please ensure you take all of your belongings when you leave. Have a great night." Karen was visibly shocked, and the joy of watching her face drop, realizing she no longer had a job, was blissful. My husband stayed until after closing to make sure Karen didn't do or take anything she shouldn't, and I skipped merrily back to my car. Enjoy unemployment, Karen! The next one is an entitled parent story. So a few months ago I posted about my father accusing me of adding more stress to his already strained marriage. I just wish this would have been the end of his craziness, but it got even worse now. A few weeks after the incident, he came again and demanded that I take pictures of the house and room so he can put it up on the market. The thing is, it's forbidden to take pictures of the indoor rooms without the tenant's consent in our country. So this time, I got my husband to tell him that we don't want to take pictures of our rooms, and instead, my husband offered to draw a floor plan. He immediately agreed to it, and I thought this was the end of it. Ha ha, stupid me should have known better. A few days later, I found a passive-aggressive letter. I'll try to translate and post in the comments, in my mailbox. Basically, it threatened me to take pictures, or otherwise, interior exploration would be increased. Note that the house hadn't been put up for sale and still isn't put up for sale yet. So to make it easier for everyone, I should obey, and in case I didn't know, a termination letter is needed and has to be sent 3 months prior to moving out. Mind you, in his home, there are rooms I'm not allowed to even open the door without a major meltdown from my stepmom. So this time, I decided to burn bridges. I endured so much of his **T over the years that I just did a whole cleanup and wrote a letter as well. We'll also put it in the comments. And as the cherry on top, I sent our termination letter with it. I asked him not to contact us for a while. Yeah, he isn't good at keeping his distance. So he wrote another letter and threw it in our mailbox. See comments. I just ignored it. Since then, he has tried to call multiple times, hung out in front of our house trying to catch me or my husband when we were leaving the house, and wrote another letter. He was able to catch my husband a few times, and my husband told him to wait until I come around. But honestly, I don't want to. At first, I thought about going LC, but his further actions are pushing me to go NC. This kind of hurts. And I always wanted my daughter to have a granddad, but he's just trying to act like one and not being one. He even posted pictures of her on social media without our consent, and even though we asked him to take them down, he didn't. There are a lot of things that have piled up, and I know if I don't write this down, I'm going to find an excuse again to let him into our life again, but I know I really shouldn't. I think I just need someone to tell me to cut him out, since my brother and other family members try to make me talk to him. But how often do I have to endure having him cross my boundaries just to make him feel better? I don't want to anymore. The next one is a relationship advice story. For background, we first started talking about the possibility of marriage/engagement only 2 months ago, although we had been dating for over a year by that time. Not only had we not talked about marriage, but we hadn't talked about any details whatsoever about a future together. Neither of us have been married before. I had been hesitant to bring up the future with her because I knew I wasn't sure yet, so she was the one who finally brought it up 2 months ago. I discovered that she is 100% ready to get married, and she discovered, to her great disappointment, that I was still unsure. She had assumed I would be 100% ready. Furthermore, she told me that she wanted to get married by this coming February because her mom would be visiting soon from out of the country and would be heading back home in February. So the time from which we first started discussing marriage, August, to her ideal marriage date, February, leaves only 6 months for me to make up my mind, get engaged, plan the wedding, and have the wedding. The main reason she gives for insisting on a rapid timeline is concern over her biological clock. Both of us do want to have kids. I was completely freaked out and caught off guard by her proposed timeline. I'm a very analytical person, a classic overthinker, and prone to heavy anxiety over big decisions. I told her my ideal timeline would be to get engaged by February, not married. I felt this would give us enough time to thoroughly discuss our future before getting engaged, and enough time for me to feel comfortable about the decision. Neither of us have been willing to bend on our ideal timelines. I still feel like I need more time. She believes I've had plenty of time to make up my mind, not only from the 2 months we've been talking about it, but also due to the prior year, plus that we were dating but not talking about it. While both of us have been trying to assert our preferred timelines, one difference is that I've at least tried to express empathy and my understanding of her needs. While I can't recall any time she has expressed any empathy for my needs on this topic. On Monday, we met up, and she told me that she can't bear to wait any longer for me to decide, so she issued an ultimatum for the end of this week to decide whether to break up or to commit to the February marriage. I've been in an anxiety-ridden, depressive state all week from the pressure. I definitely don't feel ready to make a decision, but I also don't want to miss a chance on what could potentially be a great future with her, just because I was being indecisive. I also don't want to hurt her. Any advice on how best to navigate this ultimatum? Do you think she's right that I should have been able to decide by now? I appreciate any advice, including if there is some way to navigate this situation while honoring my need for more time and her need for a decision. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.